It's a 9th class, but like I said, it's a standalone class as well. So those who were here last time will see the continuation. Just a few minute recap, and then let's jump into it. So we talked about how not every no is a rejection. And we actually need no in order to have a healthy yes. We gave examples within ourselves. Simply to be a healthy person, a person has to have the ability to say no. Either the ability to say no to anything that might feel good, but it's not your good. So you have to be able to say no. We brought it out also in regards to others. A relationship, not every rejection means no. Could be they're simply trying to see how much do you really want. Are you really there, or are you just there? That's also what a no can achieve. Now we're going to start seeing how this whole paradigm of the no and the yes, how this relates to us in regards to our relationship with Hashem. So Hashem created a world where there's no, we don't see Him. And we're going to try to explain how, although it seems like a no, but it's not a no. It's not a rejection. It's actually a healthy way to get to a yes. We did mention in the end of the last class, and this is what I'm going to focus on this class, that a teacher-student paradigm is a proper example to understand how Hashem relates to us. What is a teacher-student paradigm? The teacher gives over information to a student. And the teacher has to have the ability to hold back a certain amount of information and to only give that which the student can now process, internalize, and then go to step 2, then go to step 3. So there's this process of holding back, but the holding back the no is not a cruel no as in I'm not interested in engaging with you, I'm not interested in giving it to you. On the contrary, the teacher wants to give it. His intention is to give everything. But there's a need for a no, for holding back in order to give. That was, in a nutshell, we said in the end. Today, I'd like to digress on this paradigm of teacher-student. In Kabbalah and Chassidus, this is brought down a lot of times. It's often taken too simplistic. Teacher-student is not a simple equation. Not every teacher is a teacher, not every student is a student. I call it teacher versus loudspeaker, and a student versus being spoon-fed. What do I mean by that? If you ask anybody, what's the definition of teacher? Most people will tell you it's someone who feeds information. So I can Google it. Why do I need a teacher? What's the point of a teacher? A loudspeaker. Basically, he's a loudspeaker. There's a book, and he is just the vocal voice of the book. It's very trivial, very technical. There are ways where you can circumvent this whole process of teacher-student. Why is it such a what's unique and what's so valuable in the paradigm of a teacher-student? So someone might say, well, there are teachers who have novel ideas, but you can't Google. You don't have them. Okay, but a novel idea has a shelf life. After it's exposed and everybody knows about it, it's now on Google, and now you don't need it anymore. So what's really, what is a teacher really transmitting to a student, and what defines teacher? What's really happening? Is it really such a technical thing, just information?
I don't know.
If it's just
because when it's only information, I mean, that's why there's so much online learning today. I have had a 1 year online training. I did my credential, my teaching credential online.
Mhm.
And I truly feel like I needed a teacher. I had enough I needed to be able to do it myself. You know, and sometimes that speaker, that kind of teacher, is actually a problem. It's a problem for me, you know, because the pace is too low, or you know, whatever. It's just, I don't need to see it to go and travel and get there just to hear some information. I can just get information sooner.
If it's just information, you can get it. You can get it anywhere. So what's really very good? So you're underlining, and you know, really, this is a problem today, or not a problem. This is a challenge today more than any other time, because with technology, we have the
sharing of information.
The information is just accessible to everyone. Information becomes not valuable anymore. It's not valuable.
And behavioral problems. I'm a teacher. Like, the behavioral problems are through the roof as a result as well.
People are getting the wrong information.
Yeah.
Why do you think, at least, the behavioral problems as a result of what?
Well, I think it's a combination of factors. I think the main reason why there are behavioral problems is that there's so much pressure for students to just perform on standardized tests, which is basically the view that education is just about information. And so the kids are getting frustrated. They're checking out because there's a part of their whole self that's not being addressed or recognized, and teachers' hands are tied because there's pressure on them to get the kids to just, you know, regurgitate the information. And it's just the whole public education system as a result of this is being destroyed, in my opinion, because of the standardized testing.
Wow, that's beautiful. You know what you just said? What you said is that perception of teaching that's currently understood, which is standardized, just giving over information. Standardized. You know what the word standardized means? That means
everything.
It's not about the student.
Right.
It's just
a mass.
This is a system.
Right.
This is going to be good for everyone.
Right.
That creates behavioral problems because I never spoke to a student. I never addressed the student. I addressed the standard, the system. And the teacher is forced, you also said, the teacher is forced to do something that's not who they really are.
Yeah.
So there's no teacher, there's no student, there's a standardized system. So of course you have a failure of the system because there's no teacher or student.
And that's exactly what so many teachers are saying. They're like, I don't teach standards, I teach students. Like, this is ridiculous. And
that's really bringing out and highlighting the problem with how many define the term teacher-student. If it's about information, and you don't need a teacher, you don't need a student, put tape recorders. And there's a joke. Teacher comes into the classroom one time and he sees a bunch of tape recorders. So next time he comes to the classroom, he also puts a tape recorder. His tape recorder talks to their tape recorders. That's really what's happening today. Really, what you said is playing out the tape recorder joke. There's no people. So what really is a teacher? So then people ask, so what really is a teacher? Isn't a teacher just information? But isn't it just information? And if it isn't, but it isn't, so what really is going on? Why can't we standardize it? We come from many people who try to standardize, they're coming from the business world. And in the business world, we standardize everything. You know, there's a system, there's a template, there's a McDonald's has the same hamburger in every store across the country. So why can't we standardize teaching? Why can't we do the same thing? Isn't it this? That's really where they're coming from the business. Where are they right and where are they not so right? Where are they going wrong? So this is a huge question, like you brought out. It has a lot of implications. So let me take this to the extreme. Say something a little bit radical. And then explain it. The Gemara compares a teacher and a student to a child and a father, mother, parents. The Gemara says that someone who teaches you, and again we have to understand what teaching means, is like you have the same kibud ava'im, respecting your parents, right? There's a halacha, and it's also something which is understood in the secular world. You respect your parents. Well, the Gemara takes that and expands that to teachers as well. But why? What's the parallel? So some just take it as some kind of, because you respect anybody who's older, who gave you something. It's a deeper correlationship between the paradigm of parent-child and teacher-student. And let's play it out.
Not every teacher is good, though.
Oh, I right away said, not every teacher is a teacher and every student is a student. And that's exactly what we're going to play out. Right? Some teachers are loudspeakers.
I had some horrible teachers growing up.
So that's what I want to play out. What if a teacher is information? If it's just spitting out information, then you're going to feel horrible. Because, first of all, the information is not necessarily the teacher. The teacher doesn't necessarily feel for that information. Like you brought out how the teacher can be forced. If he's forced to teach it, it's not gonna. It's like a loudspeaker that's shaking. It won't even come out well. It won't resonate. Why? Why not? If it's just information, why not? Because there are three components in a teacher. In any teaching, giving over information. There's three components. There are the words, there's the tone, and there's the facial. I use it as articles, written word, audio, oral word, and then visual like video. There's a difference in how you capture the same information from an article versus from audio, someone saying it. And there's a difference between audio and video when you see the person who gives it over. But why? And why doesn't this difference play out all the time? Sometimes it plays out, and sometimes it's dry. You say someone who's, we can listen to an audio and say it was dry. It's like an article. And we can see someone think and say it's dead. Dead, dry is the written word, but we're applying it to the audio video. And sometimes there's an audio video where we say it's alive.
Because it needs to arouse your emotions. You need to engage your emotions. Learning has to do with emotions as well. It's not only an intellectual activity, it has to engage you in a deeper way.
Very good. So is it, when we say emotions, is it emotions as in, some might counter and say, what do you mean? Isn't learning an intellectual activity? Why do I have to have emotions? I'm just being devil advocate. I want to bring out this point that you're saying. Why do I have, what does that mean, emotions? Isn't emotions in a sense downplaying the intellectual exercise of understanding something? Why is emotions, or what is the role of the emotions, and what kind of emotions are we looking at?
I think it has to do with how you are prepared to accept, receive the information, your motivation, for instance, to learn, and then, past experiences and things like that help you retain the information.
You're referring to the student or the teacher?
To the student.
The student. So you're referring to emotional motivation of the student in a sense of being present and not just physically being there.
Yeah, but it's the interaction, because like you were saying, the facial, we can look at each other and you can gauge from my facial expressions, my body movements, whether I'm getting something, whether I'm agreeing with something, and you can change your message, not the message, but the way that you deliver the message to make sure that I get it.
That's right. Very good.
I heard that one word. So you need to connect, right?
You need to
Connect.
Yeah.
Connect.
That's what I mean. Emotionally, and you can say spiritually. You need to connect with it.
Very good.
You need to connect with it so that it becomes yours, and education is meant to be transformative. If the education is not transforming you, it's not education. At the end of an education, any education you go through, if you're still the same person, you've done nothing.
Very good. So let me now take the word you said, connect, and the word you said in the sense of the facial expression and the motivation of the student and the teacher. And now let me highlight that within the definition of a teacher. A teacher is not giving over information. A teacher is giving over themselves. If it's an idea that they don't feel for, And the word feel is emotions, but it's not emotions as in just being excited. It's emotions as in connecting to the idea. If the teacher hasn't connected to the idea, then how can you give it over? Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are you giving over? Words? I can read that in a book too. You're a loudspeaker? Good for you. Go home. Put a tape recorder. You connected to it? Oh, now you have words. Now it's words are very poor. They're very poor. They spill over into the tone. You can say to someone, I love you. I hate you. Can't stand you. Or you can put something in those words that express a different meaning, and those words become a lie. Because they're not words, they're you. Is it you or is it words? Are you the one or are you just saying words? Well, it comes out in the words. So the tone kind of balances a deficiency that's inherent in words. And then the facial expression is because it's you. It's not a facial, because if it's you, it comes out in how you, in what you're going to say, the words you choose, the references you give. They always say, Grandma used to say, everybody has their thing. Grandma always used to say, Grandma's wisdom of life. Her experience, you said the word experience before. Someone said the word experience, right? Grandma's experience. You're always going to have, every family's going to say, Grandma's wisdom. She always used to say, I don't know, be careful, whatever it may be, right? Why did she always used to say? And it stuck with the kids. Because she lived it. It wasn't she read it in the book, right? It was a lie. In Pirkei Avos, so there is every author in Pirkei Avos. It says, let's say Rav Yossi, Rav Shimon, his name was Shimon. Let's say Rav Shimon Omer. Rav Shimon says, the commentaries explain, why did Rav Shimon say that saying? Because it was like grandma. This was what he always used to say. It was like grandma's thing. Every Tana, every one of the Chachamim who authored the Talmud had their saying of life. And that's what Pirkei Avos really is. That's why Ethics of Our Fathers is about behavior patterns that we should copy. It wasn't just a collection of wisdom. It was a collection of authors who lived it. And each one personal experiences, and that's why it usually relates to their life. Usually each one who said their saying, there's something in their life that happened that plays out in the saying that they expressed. If it's done, kol adam lakaschos, always give someone the benefit of the doubt, which in itself needs to be understood what that means and the depth of what that really means. It's because he had experiences in life, and that's what he lives with. Beis Hillel was there were different things, each one lived with different things. What am I bringing out? A teacher is giving over. Number one, define the teacher as someone who connects to. Every teacher has different ideas that they give over, that they like to give over. Why do you pick a certain subject? Because you feel. What do you mean you feel? It talks, it resonates. You connected. Connecting is a key word. And why the same subject, each teacher will use different words when they convey the same theme. Many people, forget about teachers, people, when they convey an idea, they use different words. Why using different words? Just use the same words. This is how I express myself. Oh, it's you, so you can express yourself. If it's not you, you're going to use the same words you read. When you read a story to your child, so you can read it from the storybook, or something the child says, Ma, tell me a story from when you were a baby. Tell me a story that happened to you. It's a different story. It's not the story from the book. It's an alive story. So there's, number one, we have to change, and this is just step one. The teacher's giving over an idea they live with. Now there's even more than that. The Rambam, Maimonides, lived about, 500 years before the Rogatchover. The Rogatchover is a great Talmud scholar that lived 80 years ago, right before the war. A little bit before the war, World War II. Genius. He wrote all over, he was known for his concise comments. Simply
so
a few.
During the war?
He passed away before the war, a little bit before the war. It's like he was an Arab before the war. And he was a genius of mine. He used to say, I'm a student of the Rambam. I said to him, hello, the Rambam passed away 500 years ago. How could you be a student of the Rambam? He says, you don't get it. When I see something, when I hear something, I can tell you if it's the Rambam's thing or not. Is that a Rambam thing to say? I can't do that. Someone who really connects. In the Gemara, there is a concept called the Talmud Muvhak. There are students, and then there are committed students. Not a committed. It's he got it. That student is carrying on the teachings of that teacher. He got it. He can say, like when you know someone very well, you can tell them what they're going to say before they say it. Or if you hear a saying in their name, you can know who said it. Or in songs, if you hear a song, you can know who the composer of that song. If you know a certain composer, that's his style. You have to really know the person to say, I know his style. You have to really, so you're not only getting the information. You're not only getting the information that he lived with. You're getting the way he dissects information. You're getting a mindset. You're getting a view. You're simply getting, you're like tapping into his brain. And every individual has their unique way how they kind of digest information, right? There's Chochmah, Bina, Das, there's visionaries, there are people that everybody, there are three general ways how we dissect information. And each one, there are compositions between each one, but the idea is each one has a unique way how they, and when you really got someone's idea, you are now able to actually dissect information the same way he's able to. The Rogatchover said, I really got the Rambam. I studied him for years. I really got him. I can tell you what's around. That, someone can quote him something, he can say, it doesn't say in the Rambam. Not because I learned the whole Rambam, but I know that's not what he would say. There's two ways of saying I know something. Google knows there's no information in this book, but Google doesn't necessarily understand the way each teacher gets things to say, oh, that's not that kind of, just knows information. Somebody, it doesn't belong there. It's like a bookshelf. It's like a librarian. The librarian's going to say, it doesn't belong on that shelf. Does that mean the librarian got the way that thinker, the new book is going to come out? I don't know where it belongs. You have to tell me. But this person who's really his student, I've got the way they think. I can tell you what's his, what's not. I know this composer. That is not his song. He doesn't sing that way. How do you know? I know him. He would never say that. How do you know he would never say that? I know him very well. He's just not going to say that. How do you know? You have a camera on him 24/7? I know him. Him. Not his words. Not the idea. Beyond. Not only the idea. Not only his words. I'm digging. Getting his mindset. Torah. It says that when Hashem wrote the Torah, it says that he put himself into it. When we learn Torah, we're not just learning a book. We're technically learning God's mindset. We're learning Hashem's mindset. There's spirituality that's invested in Torah that's also coming through to a person when they learn Torah. It sounds spiritual, but let's understand this logically. Just like when you get to know someone, you get to know the idea, you get to know the words, the idea, and the way they see many ideas. So through one idea, you're getting to see things like, well, it takes time. You have to probably hear quite a few ideas until you really reach the ultimate, the top of that paradigm where you really get his way of seeing things. It takes time. It takes effort. And we're soon going to see what it takes from a student to get there. The student has to be a student. Not every student can do that. That's why the teacher and the students, not every student ended up that way. That's what we're comparing it to a child. A child, you look at a child and you say, oh, that's a child. He thinks the same way like his mother. He thinks the same way like his father. But in children, it's by birth. By students, it's by effort. So the paradigm of teacher-student is a lot deeper. Student has the ability, it's a radical idea. A student-teacher relationship has the ability to give over not just the words, not just an idea, but a mindset to a student. Just like a father and a parent and a child, father and mother, whatever it may be. It takes effort, and there is a lot of effort on the part of the teacher and on the part of the student, as we'll see. But that is, if you want to put it as you want to define the paradigm, that's the, you always look at a paradigm and say, where can it lead to? Not the failures, but the successes. That's the success of a teacher-student paradigm. If you want to know what should be your goal, don't give up until you get there, because that's what you could accomplish. And that's in every teacher-student relationship. So just like you have that in the teacher-student relationship here, physically, with the student, many students can attest that they learned with a certain teacher for a while, and that's why certain students connect to certain teachers, because that means to say that there's originally some kind of co-relationship between the way the teacher sees things and the way the student. Well, the fact that the student picked that class means to say that there's something in that class that somehow intrigues the student, and the fact that a teacher chose that class, it means the teachers should be, unless it's standardized, should be intrigued and living by that topic or theme. And even though they're both intrigued, during that class there's got to be a connection also in the way they think, because if the teacher gives something over one way and the teacher and the student is used to another way, it might be more difficult for the student to adapt to a new way of thinking. But if the student has the motivation and has the will and has just a head on his shoulder, if they don't have a head, you can't do it. But if you have a head and you have the ability to think, you can adapt to new ways of thinking too, as long as it's more effort, but it comes together. And you have that ability to simply, a student can say, I get the way he thinks. And eventually a student can say, I know what he's going to say. I already know how this teacher thinks. And that's what happened in the Gemara, in the base measures. There will be certain students that would be base Hillel, base Shammai, the house of Hillel. What do you mean the house? It's a study. They know each other. They got to know how it's like, I'm from the same home, We think the same way. It became a thinking pattern and not just an informative conversation where we just share information. No, this is a lifestyle. This is a mindset, an approach to life as a whole. So now what do we get over here? So we see over here is the teacher-student paradigm is there to transform a student to be exactly like the teacher. Not only in information, but in the mindset, picking up the student to the extent the student becomes the teacher. Okay, so let me review the first point, because we have to now see how this applies with the teacher, and now we have to go to the student. Let me show you inside the pointers that I have inside so we can review the teacher, see how we now changed the definition of teacher, and then we're going to continue in the last part of this class. Why doesn't every student get it? How long does it take for a student to take that leap, to see that change? What are the prerequisites for a student to engage in order to climb that ladder? Sometimes we feel like we're in a dark hole. But what do we have to do? There's got to be a conscious effort, because otherwise it doesn't work, right? It's not like a child which gets it by birth. There's got to be an effort. So how does that work? So let me review what we learned over here to get this straight, and then we'll see this in the pointers I put out in the handout. Does everybody have the handout in front of them? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Okay. So the first point we started off with is that a teacher holds back information, right? And I brought out it's not cruel. Eventually you're giving over all the information. Now, this is what everybody knows about a teacher, but this obviously, there's a lot more to a teacher-student paradigm. What is the world? What do most people, how do they define teacher? Well, he gives over information. That's what most people say. Well, I brought out 3 points. Is it a loudspeaker? I like to use the word loudspeaker. Loudspeaker basically means you're nothing. You're just an amplifier of a book. There's a book on the shelf, and the teacher is saying they're amplifying it. What is that? That's what a teacher-student paradigm is. Is it Google? Another way of saying, in our language today, of sharing information? And even if you're going to tell me, some people are going to say, well, he has a novel idea to share. That still doesn't define a teacher, because a novel idea has a shelf life. So now it's not novel. Now it's on Google, and you still amplify a novel idea. Is that what it is? It's obviously not. So I brought out how the way of thinking is directly linked to the genes of our parents. Every child we have genetically from our parents. We have that's where we have our genetic makeup. So part of the genetic makeup, just like we have certain character, we have a certain way of thinking, and that comes from our parents. What do I mean by way of thinking?
Well, if I could just interject, like they've done, I'm not sure how about that, because they've done studies with rats, for example, and they found that they put rats in like different environments and exposed them to different types of music, and they found that some rats, if you put them in a certain environment where they're exposed to classical music, that they were able to go through the maze faster, and they found that certain genes that coded for intelligence were activated because of the environment that the rat was in. So it just, I don't know, I wonder the relationship between the genes and the environment.
So there's nature and there's nurture, right? Nature and nurture is what you're talking, is what really referring to. So let me explain a little more what I mean way of thinking. I mentioned this in a reference to this Chachma Bin and Das. Way of thinking is very general. I'll define it. What do you enjoy more? Some people, I can talk for myself, some people enjoy taking one idea, really getting to the bottom of it. Some people enjoy more of like an encyclopedic kind of mind. They're not necessarily, it's like depth and width. Right? There are different ways how some people like pizza, some people like sweet things, and some people like sour things. Sweet and sour, is that a taste that people are born with? Kind of, right?
Sometimes
nature and nurture can take a role, can take a toll on someone, but essentially we're born with sweet and sour, right?
Right. Although sometimes things do happen to people, and then their taste bud, they start to like different things.
Fine. Yeah. But it's essentially there's a certain character. Some people are born with character of forgiving, or not the word forgiving, soft. Some people have more of a tougher character, right? There are different inherent. Obviously, a person has the ability to change. A person has the ability to mellow, and a person is not a painting. A person changes, and a person has. But there's always going to be the balance of how you weigh it is going to be different in every individual. This person is going to be leaning towards this, but he has to balance himself the other way around. Like the Rambam says, some people are born that they're pazronim, they spend a lot of money. Some people are born that they're kamtsonim, they don't spend a lot of money. So the Rambam gives a eitzah, gives us a little bit of advice, a tip on life. How do you go ahead and how do you balance those two extremes? So he says a person who's a very extreme kamtzon, who doesn't spend at all, he should go on a spending spree. And that's going to put him in the middle. Now, once he hits a little bit in the middle, he's going to always be leaning towards kamtzon, towards not spending, because that's how he was born. So his struggle is always going to be to go away from there. It doesn't mean he's going to be a kamtzon all his life. It just means the leaning, the place where he leans, is going to be based on where he's born from. But he can always lean towards another direction as well. The other fellow, he's always spending. You be a kamtzon. Don't spend. When you tell him don't spend, you're basically pushing him to the middle. He doesn't know what it means not to spend. So he's always going to have, they're both in the same place. Remember, let's give the example of two people on the ladder, right? They're both in the same place, but they're totally different directions. They're in the worlds apart. One's heading up, one's heading down, right? So both of them are in the middle. But the nature plays a role. Where you're leaning towards. With utmost effort, a person can change, nurture. So the same thing is in the mind. Everybody is born with a certain tendency of how they dissect information. Some people dissect information by finding a lot of examples that bring out the same point, and that's how they feel satisfied. In a sense, just like you're satisfied in taste, you can be satisfied in your mind. So that's what I mean by way of thinking. I don't mean by if I like someone or I don't like someone. I'm going more deeper within the person in the sense of how I dissect information. Some people dissect information by depth, some people width. Just like there's sour and sweet. Just like there's pazronim and come to spending and not spending, and right? So there's the nature component is always there, although nurture does play a role in the sense of balancing it out. So that's what I
Otherwise,
mean.
there wouldn't be any point to education.
What?
Otherwise, there wouldn't be any point to education.
Exactly.
Because how could you?
Exactly. Obviously, I'm not taking away the point of education.
Right.
It's just a balance is gonna, and a student is gonna be inclined to go to a teacher who has a similar natural tendency, essential tendency. Science usually scientific analysis. There are different kinds of ways how I analyze information. They say that students of Gemara are very good with analysis, financial analysis, certain ways how they analyze financial data is very similar to how we're trained in the Gemara, because it's a similar way of now Gemara and financial data are two different subjects, but it's a way of thinking. Maybe not a way of thinking, but a way of digesting information. Maybe not a way of thinking, the way to digest information, how I apply to it, so how I process. So am I talking about the genes? I don't mean to say you're stuck, and I don't mean to say that nurture doesn't take any effect. What I'm simply stating is that
Tendency.
there's a tendency, right? There's a
What I wanted to say, another word that can be helpful is we're all born with certain predisposition. Both physical
That's right.
as well as, I would say
Mental,
intellectual and other
intellectual,
areas. So there's some things that are there. Not necessarily they're all going to play out the same way that previous generations did, but you have the
certain thing within you, how you're born.
How you approach the world, how your body's gonna, function, how your body's gonna work things through.
Beautiful. So that's another way how to bring out predisposition. Very good.
So usually, in your family, people kind of stomach ache. Well, that's their thing.
That's the thing in that family.
That's the thing. Or families have problems with
Backache, whatever it may be, constipation, whatever.
Whatever. Constantly kind of runs in the family.
Whatever.
Kind of runs in the family.
Yeah. So so that's what I mean by genetic. The predisposition. Very good. So now why did I bring that out? Because when we understand how, don't forget, a teacher student is nurture, not nature, right? And we're implying that a teacher student can have the same effect as nature, but not every teacher to every student. It's going to play out differently, right? But there is that ability. A teacher can. The mind is so powerful. When you apply your mind to something, the mind can connect and have that. The teacher can give over a way of seeing things to the student, and when you change the way you see things, I mentioned this quote that I like very much. You change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Gave an example back then of the fellow in the train, comes on a train, and it's early in the morning, and there's a fellow that comes on the train with 4 kids, and they're running around and they're making a lot of noise in the train. So one of the passengers turns around to the father with 4 kids and tells him, "Can you get your kids to sit down? What's going on over here?" He says, "Yeah, I'm very sorry. We just came back from the hospital, and their mom just died. We're all trying to get over it." Within a minute, he changed the way he looked at 4 kids running around on a train. And he changed it 360 degrees. And he didn't force himself to change, but he changed. A real change. It's an authentic, genuine change. How? All through the mind. If he would have told himself, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, it wouldn't work. Genuine. Well, that is the effect of the mind. And that's what a teacher can do to a student. That's what the Torah is supposed to do to us when we learn it, if we learn it right. Give us perspective change also. It's not just giving us information. It's giving us the perspective of the author. Well, the author is the owner of the world. The author is the creator. So you're getting a creator perspective. Something's going to happen. Something's going to... Eventually you can say, you'll see things differently that comes through. Sometimes messages come through. It's like example, when a person says, "I love you," "I hate you," or whatever it is, there are feelings that come through beyond the words. In the tone, in the face, in the circumstances, in the environment. There's a lot of things that come up. So that's as far as the teacher with the student. That gives us the 3, 4, 5. I underlined the idea of the words, the tone, the visual, the article. I brought out the grandma used to say, when you detect a composer, if you really know a composer, you can see the song. If you know an author, the Rambam and the Rugged Shover, the Torah has within it the author. So this is all from the perspective of the teacher. What the teacher, so if you have over here the idea, the teacher invests himself in the idea. But now, how does a student take that and become the ultimate student? Now we talk about the teacher investing himself in the idea. So now how does a student get that? So here we come to the second part. Everybody's going to ask, it's a radical idea. So you tell me a total stranger can impact this person's way of thinking? And why don't we see it in every child? So here is a key thing. I say the difference between questions and bankruptcy. A real businessman, when they hit a challenging moment, takes it as an opportunity to redefine his business strategy. Doesn't declare bankruptcy until he's forced. Some silly students, every question becomes a declaration of bankruptcy. Oh, it doesn't make sense. Oh, it doesn't make sense. Instead of taking a question as a way to peel away those layers that are separating me from the idea, my way of thinking from that way of thinking that I'm trying to get to, and the question is simply a springboard for me to invest deeper within myself, for me to rethink the way. A question is really saying, stop that way of thinking. Come on, get a new strategy. Come on, I want you to get a new strategy. I'm looking for you to strip that away, but not to give up, not to say that you're gone, but to redefine. There's a great strategy around the corner from you. If you would have just, if you just take that strategy, you're going to become the next successful business. But you can't continue on the path you're on. So yeah, you have a question. Yeah, bankrupt this road. Don't bankrupt yourself. Now, two people learning, and a question is asked. A question doesn't mean it's the end of the road. A question means in the beginning of a new road. The road that are leading to the same goal of that. Just don't go away. Don't take a right turn. Take a left turn. That's how a left turn, a right turn, whatever. Maybe that's how you're gonna get there. That's a key thing. Perseverance. A student has to have that key characteristic of persevering, asking questions. Moments of questions many times can feel like black, dark moments. And you don't even see beyond them. It's done. Doesn't make sense. It can't be. But when the student knows who told him that information, so he works harder. Imagine Steve Jobs tells his unit that are working on work on this idea. They're not going to so quickly tell him, it's not, you're dreaming. Imagine he told them. But when they first started with this idea of digital picture, everybody was in film. Imagine they told them, jump in the lake. We're not doing, this is crazy. You're just blown. What are you flying pictures? You got to print them. You got to send them. You got to go to a printer. You have to print so many. It's going to cost them. No. We're going to fly them. You have a plane. What are you going to do? You can just imagine what was going through the minds of, right? But they're able to let go. Oh, let go. How can you because just let go. There's another reality that I'm begging you to internalize, but you have to learn how to let go of whatever. So the question, you hit a question. That question is going to help you let go and see something deeper. That's what a question is supposed to be. So student is not supposed to be spoon-fed. He can't be spoon-fed. And a student is given information. Some of the information is a good student can ask the right questions, can pick and detect a certain piece of information and say, 1 second, you mentioned that. Can you say a little bit more? Give me a little bit more information on that point, because I got something, but I didn't get something. Actually, let me think it over. The next day, I'm going to ask him a question on it.
Wait.
Right? So there's 2 points up here. Number one is I'm hearing information. As much as I'm hearing what is said, I'm hearing what's not said. A good student doesn't only hear what is said, they hear what's not said. And then a few days later they come back and they say, now I got it. You have to think it over. And then, so there's going to be three things. There's going to be something you get, something you don't get, something that doesn't make sense. So you climb the ladder. Suddenly, from the area that you right away got, that you digested it, fine, that you digest, that's a no-brainer. Then there's something that you didn't get yet. So you're going to start thinking about that, and then you get it. And then suddenly the area that doesn't make sense, you almost got it. And that's a climbing ladder of a student. And many times you have to sit on information. You can have a teacher, or you can have an idea that you heard. You heard it. It made sense. But it didn't click.
It's a lag time.
And then one day you turn around and you say, now I got it. Now I got what you said. You told me that a little while ago. I got it now. What happened? I got it now. I got it. What happened? This taught me. Usually it's a life experience. Usually it's something that I saw, something I got it. I got it. This is going to be the focus of the next few classes. What things in a student, and then obviously this is going to play out on life, right? Because now we're going in life. If Hashem is a student, if Hashem is a teacher, so he invested himself in nature. By the way, what does it say? Hashem created the world with what? Asara Mamoris, words. The teacher, he's speaking. The words have a tone, and the words have a facial expression too. The Beis HaMikdash was a holy place. What's holy? It was a different teaching experience. It's like seeing an article or seeing a video. In the Beis HaMikdash, they saw the video. It's the same words of creation, but you get it when you see it. When you see the author talking, it becomes a different reality. It's real. It's not an article that I have to dig into it to get it. The Rebbe Rashab in Ayin Beis gives this example. One of the founding, that deep areas of where he explains Kabbalah. He gives this example. He says, in the Beis HaMikdash, you want to know, it's words. The words of creation are the same words. But over there, it's like the visual expression. He gives Kabbalah, they give example of the forehead of a person. When a person is in a good mood, the face shines. And the face can be in a down mood, can be in a good mood. Even when you have a good idea that you come up with, you shine. The Gemara says, Tov Panav, face shine. Right? What's the idea? The idea is that ideas, till they come out in the words, there's the word, there's the tone, and then there's the face. Face is like saying facial expression. Just in Kabbalah, it's used the metzach, which is the forehead, which is the same thing like in English. We say facial expression gives out sometimes in combination. If you don't understand what they're saying, then you won't get it at all. But if you understand what they're saying, you hear the words, and you hear the tone, and the facial, then everything together is the experience of giving over an experience and not words. It turns into experience when we see the facial expression. It stays with words and dry. Audio is better, but it stays dry, and that's what a real teacher is supposed to be. In the Beis HaMikdash, Hashem was giving us the ultimate experience. Throughout life, we have to, as a student, dig into it more than in the Beis HaMikdash where it was obvious. Well, as we'll go on, we'll see the different components. So what is life? How does he help us? How does he have that? Is it standardized teaching, or is it individualized and unique? And it's going to be unique. Don't forget, every person has their own life. Their own life is their unique teachings for the individual. Things that happen to us in life are by design, and they're meant to teach, not to drown. And each person has a different life. And how we look and perceive our own life will change the effect and impact of the things we experience in our life. So the first thing we did over here was explain to us who the teacher is, how we approach a teacher, what the teacher invests, what we could expect from a teacher-student relationship ultimately. Now, as a student, we have to start discovering what's that unique student, where is the unique student, and how does this teacher teach me? Okay, I know the paradigm of a teacher. That's what we talked about today. Now let's get to the student. So what in the student, what's this perseverance that we talked about? Obviously, this is going to play out in challenges in life, and how that plays out in the pekel. I mentioned this also before. It's a famous Yiddish joke. Two Jews meet, and each one is complaining, right? Jews like the krechts. They like to complain. Oh, I have such a bad life. This has happened to me. And okay, this happened to me. Tell me what happened to you. My whole garden blew up. I'll take that. No problem. You could be what happened to me. By me, I have a business that blew up. Business that blew up? Really? I'll take that too. Let's trade. I'll take the business that blew up, and then suddenly they start asking more questions. Forget it. You also had that. You also had that. You also had that. I'll keep my pekel. You keep your pekel. They separate. At the end of the day, everybody suddenly appreciates their own pekel. They realize that I can't deal with your pekel, and you can't deal with my pekel. And now the question is, instead of looking at someone else's pekel, let me finally start looking at my own pekel and figure out why is it my pekel. And that's the key. Once you start looking at your own pekel instead of someone else's pekel, that's the biggest problem. Then you can start learning about who you are based on your pekel too. Instead of saying the word pekel, say opportunity. Pekel is a derogatory term, as in it's like my problems, you know? No. Suddenly look at it as these are the tools given to you as an individualized, unique set of tools that are for you to help you teach. Because at the end of the day, we don't want a standardized teacher. And it's not a standardized teacher. I'll get to that next time. You're welcome. Okay. I'll just say, in the end, I mentioned this. The Jews were in the Midbar for 40 years. You know why? Why were they for 40 years in the Midbar? It took 40 years to get it. That's what it says. It took them 40 years to get it. You know, like something has to sit on you until you get it? And then they can go into Israelite. Because in the Midbar, they got everything from Hashem. Hashem was very concerned. He needs to teach them what's going to happen when they have to work on their own. As like a teenager, you know, like a teenager, everything you give them, suddenly they go on their own, what's going to happen? They needed 40 years of therapy in the Midbar. They were complaining a lot, but they also learned a lot. And eventually they were able to go into Israel. So as long as we don't have 40 years, we're okay.